Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back for another video. Before we get started with today's video, I just want to say thank you as I have reached that 1,000 subscriber threshold for the channel and going forward what I can do with the channel, and hopefully one day make this possibly a full-time thing, but we'll just have to wait and see. But I just want to say thank you so much for that. It means the world to me that I've gotten the support I have with the channel, helping it grow, growing this community, connecting with other people that enjoy the shows that I do, talking about them, and just everything involved with just talking about the TV shows and the movies that we have today. And just, it means the world to me, so thank you so much for that. But today's video, I want to talk about, once again, the CW hero universe, as it were, because it is now gone. The CW itself is just, it's gone now too. It's dead. It's completely different from what it used to be, and they're not going to have any more scripted shows that I'm aware of. But today I want to talk about the Heroverse, the Arrowverse, and we had, I think, at least one or two shows that weren't considered part of that Arrowverse. But just talk about them, rate them, rank them, whatever, and discuss what used to be the, one of the biggest crossover experimental type things that we've ever had with this type of show. Because as we know, the DC movie universe, it's not been as successful. It does not have quite the following, and it just keeps getting rebooted with different actors and different stories, and people, particularly me, we're just kind of tired of it. We don't care anymore. I have no intention of seeing the new Superman movie. I've mentioned this in multiple videos at this point, but I don't care. And to kind of go on that topic too, we had a good Superman with Tyler Hoechlin. And say what you will, he did a good job in that. He brought it to life in a way that was his own. He did things that we had never seen before. And of course, the Superman that we ended with was not the Superman that we began with, as it separated itself from the Arrowverse. But all in all, it was a good Superman, and I was sad to see it go because I think they could have done so much more with it. But with that, we're going to talk about all of the shows. As we know, it started way back in 2012 with Arrow. That was the launching point for all of these shows, and it spawned something that's never been done before, and some of it worked, and some of it, of course, didn't. It was weak, or certain series didn't last as long, or they ended on cliffhangers, or just there were a multitude of different things going on with this universe and what they're able to accomplish with it in the last decade. And first off, let's jump into the ranking and just discussion. This is a show that is not technically part of any universe. It was kind of separated, and it just did not strike me as a show that would do well. And I'm talking about Gotham Knights. This is one of the last DC Universe shows that they attempted to do before the ownership of CW was switched over, and just the whole path that the CW on changed. But Gotham Knights, it was introduced, and we had this whole new story of Batman's adopted son, one of many at this point, depending what you read or what you watch. And this whole mystery about the death of Batman and these new kid characters coming in. And gotta say, this was the worst of them all. I mean, there were some shows that I didn't particularly care for, just kind of the direction they took and the tone of the show. This, right off the bat, was terrible. I tried watching it. I think I watched the first 2 episodes, and it was just unwatchable. And because of that, it did not last past 1 season. And the thing that really drew me towards it to begin with was the fact that Misha Collins was going to be in it. And Misha Collins, if you're not familiar with him, he played Castiel on Supernatural for the better part of a decade himself. So I enjoyed his work. I enjoyed his acting. And I thought he would bring something to the show that could possibly help it, but the show was beyond saving. It just was not going to work. And so with that, we have the worst of the DC properties on the channel. So that will rank that show pretty much in dead last as far as this list is concerned. Moving on, though, we have Batwoman. Now, Batwoman was another series that didn't strike me as something that could work, that could do well in this universe, and it had nothing to do with the actress that they had come in. Ruby Rose, as we know, came in, she did the first season, things came up, she got hurt, they didn't cooperate with her or whatever, and she was written out of the show, and then we had another actress come in to play a different version of Batwoman. And with that, I think that kind of was the final nail in the coffin for that show. It was trying to do something that it wasn't going to work. And the quality of the show, the writing and everything was just not up to par with what we had seen with our previous shows. And as a result, it only made it to the 3rd season. And that was just one of those shows too. There's a couple on this list. That was one of those shows that I did not finish watching. It became one of the shows that I just lost interest in. It could not keep me involved or captivated or whatever. It just did not do it for me as a member of the Arrowverse. We did see some crossover events with Ruby Rose's Batwoman, and then the show kind of ended abruptly, and therefore that second version of Batwoman didn't get any closure. It was just kind of ended right then and there. That was something that was not intended to be a series finale, and it didn't get any payout as far as those characters and the story they were trying to tell, whatever it was, because as I said, I did not finish watching that show, so I have no idea how it ended. But we got some indication as far as where that character ended up because of the story arc that she did get in The Flash, or at least one version of her got in The Flash. And with that said, we're moving on to the next one in my list, Supergirl. Now, as we know, Supergirl started out on CBS, and after one season, it was to be canceled. CW swooped in, saved it, and it became part of the Arrowverse, or an extended part, because it did take place on another Earth, and it was kind of discovered there accidentally as far as the story is involved, with Barry accidentally going so fast for that first time that he punched through the multiverse or what have you, and it ended up in her world and met her, and she became part of the story after that. And that was another show, unfortunately, and that's kind of a trend with some of these shows. I did not finish this one either. It was just a show that did not keep me interested. The story, the acting, the budget, or whatever, just many different parts. It wasn't just one thing. It was many different parts that played in my decision to stop watching it because I just didn't care about the story, the kind of corniness of it all. And this is kind of a complaint with a couple of different these shows. It became too cartoony. It had nothing to do with some of the storylines people might find controversial. I just didn't care for it. It just lost my interest. It has nothing to do with Melissa Benoist's portrayal of Supergirl. I just did not care for the story and where it was trying to go, and it just, I don't know, it just didn't do it for me in that sense. And so as a result, I never finished it. I actually just watched the finale today. Like, I just skipped to the very end just to see how it ended, and it reminded me of why I stopped watching it, because we get these characters that just seem really, I don't know, for lack of a better word, just stupid. I didn't care for them, and we have, I don't even know half their names anymore, but we have some of these characters come in, and just the effort that they put into certain things like makeup. It just looks like they had one dude stand in a paint booth and just be sprayed down, and that was that. They didn't try to add any texture, any kind of context to his makeup to make him more of a believable alien, and that was just one of the things, like, they didn't even try there towards the end. And some of the storyline they chose and some of these other characters, and like in that finale, they brought in a bunch of cameos from people that had since left, and it was all very forced, and I didn't care for that part of it either. And it was just a subtle reminder of why I walked away from the show in the first place, because it just got bad. And it's unfortunate, but it just turned out that way. And moving on to the next one on this list, this is another example of a show that just got too cartoony. It just got too ridiculous, and the constant change-up of the cast didn't help. And I'm talking about Legends of Tomorrow. I really enjoyed this show when it first came out. I really enjoyed the cast. I really enjoyed the story. But after, I want to say, probably the 3rd or 4th season, just the cast was changing constantly, and I didn't care for it. And along with that, too, with the changing of cast with certain cast members, and particularly Brandon Routh, who made it known it was not his decision to leave. And he was one of my more favorable characters. He was more or less forced off the show. And that just kind of did it for me. I didn't care for the show after that, and again, with the constant change-up, it was hard to keep up. It was hard to stay interested in people's storylines because they were just kind of crammed in there, and they were rushed, and just, it made no sense, and just, I didn't care for it because of the direction that the show took. It was very, and I'll say again, cartoony. I just did not care for what they were doing with it, taking away from any seriousness, and just, the story just went to absolute shit. And that was another one where I skipped to the very end because I stopped watching it. I knew how it ended, and I tried to watch that finale. I couldn't get past the first 15 minutes of it, and I was very sad to see a show that I once actually really liked kind of take the turn it did, and just it be complete garbage after that. And not only that, because I knew how it ended, I knew that it ended on a cliffhanger, and the show was abruptly canceled, and therefore you don't want to watch something where you're not going to get that payout, you're not going to get that satisfaction of seeing a show in completion with it being ended the way it did so abruptly. It just took away from any interest that I really had to see how it ended. But moving on to, I I would say some of the upper parts of this list. Now, these three, two of them being original parts of the Arrowverse, the one that started it and the one that followed, but kind of going in the order that I've deemed kind of acceptable, I guess, as far as the quality of the shows and everything. When it comes to number 3 on this particular list, The Flash. Now, The Flash, as we know, was kind of Easter egged or backdoored into the Arrowverse within the second season of Arrow, and we got to meet Barry Allen. We got to see his story, how he became the Flash. Because those first few seasons, we got the introduction of the Reverse Flash. We had the mystery that he was just right there in front of us the whole time. And then we had people like Zoom come in. Then we had just different versions of Flash. And then we had the introduction of the multiverse. And that's what made those first few seasons really enjoyable. But such is life with these particular shows. As the seasons went on, as the later ones went on, it did get kind of silly. And it lost its seriousness that it once had. But it was still pretty watchable at that point, but there were some episodes I didn't care for. There were some seasons I didn't care for, and as to say with the finale was kind of the same thing, because we had seen the return of Reverse Flash for the umpteenth time. He was the main villain, along with some others from the past that were just kind of crammed in there, along with some new ones that were taking the form of old characters that were killed off. And it just, to me, it just wasn't fulfilling enough as a series finale. But we did get kind of nods to the possibility of the future if the CW was still around, as the Flash did kind of go through a process of choosing new Flashes from different worlds or what have you, sending a lightning bolt into the sky and whatnot. But as far as Satisfactory's sake, it was okay. I was glad to see it ended the way it did, and it wasn't abruptly canceled to where we got no satisfaction or no closure for certain characters or storylines or anything like that. But moving on to the next one, we do have Arrow. Now, Arrow, as we know, started it all. It was the show, it was the seed that planted this whole universe and sparked everything, with the introduction of Flash, with the introduction of certain characters that would go on to do Legends and just things like that. This was a show that I really liked because it was so grounded in reality, at least that first season. Then it kind of started to get that spark of the mystical or the scientifically impossible or what have you, with the introduction of the Flash and introduction of other characters and metahumans and whatnot. And because it was done the way it was more believable, it was more tolerable. But again, with this show, as with others, some seasons were better than others. And the way that they ended it, even though it was done in a way where they could do it the way that they wanted, I did not care for Oliver Queen dying within the whole Crisis on Infinite Earths arc. I don't know. I think they could have done that in a better way, but it still was kind of satisfying that they did it in a way to bring closure to that character, as we did see him move on, become the Spectre. But there was a lot of things I think a lot of people didn't like, but it still closed it out in a way where we did get kind of a happy ending, sort of, with Oliver and Felicity, where they're kind of off in their own parallel dimension or what have you with each other, or the afterlife, however you look at it. So we did get that part where they got to end up together. But I guess the one sad thing is with Arrow, they did try to backdoor another pilot, which was with Mia and the Black Canary, and with the Earth 2 version of Laurel, but it just didn't quite work out. It just didn't capture people like they wanted it to. The story, I guess, just didn't work or whatever. And I guess just the plans for any kind of spin-off that featured those characters just did not come to fruition, and it just didn't do what they wanted it to, so those plans were scrapped. But coming to number 1 on this list, and this should not be any surprise, as it is the final CW Arrowverse, even though technically, yes, it's not part of the Arrowverse when it ended, but it was introduced as an Arrowverse character, and it was the final show within the CW Heroverse, which was Superman and Lois. I think they did a tremendous job with only the 4 seasons that they got, and with that final season being limited to only 10 episodes, they still were able to close it in a way that was satisfactory, even though, yes, there were people that complained about that last episode, but we got to see them do something with a version of Superman that we really hadn't seen before, which was see him live out his life, become human, and then just die. And he got to have a fulfilled life with Lois, even though that she kind of ended up dying before him under kind of pretty tragic circumstances, actually. But we got to see the boys grow up. We got to see them take on the mantle of their own Superboys or what have you. And we just got a closure for a lot of characters, a lot of story arc and whatnot that was good. It paid off to stick around with this show, and it didn't feel rushed. It didn't feel like they just crammed a bunch of story together just to try and make it make sense. It actually made sense the way they did it, and we got to see just how things worked out in his world as far as learning to forgive and learning to make peace with the fact that he was becoming human and giving up the mantle of Superman and just living his life with his wife, and just seeing that fulfillment in the sense that he lived a full life. He did what he had to do with the time that he had. So I really enjoyed the finale and the series as a whole with Superman, Lois, and kind of one, I wouldn't call it honorable mention, but just one of the shows I did kind of sidestep because I never actually watched it, which was Stargirl. That just never struck me as something that would interest me or just pull me in or whatever. I think I did see at least 1 or 2 episodes, and then it's just another one of those shows that I just lost interest in. But a lot of people say it was good, so maybe sometime I'll check it out again, because technically, yes, I think it was part of the Arrowverse with the inclusion of John Wesley Shipp's version of The Flash. But I guess I'll have to revisit that sometime and see if I can get through the whole series, because again, people said it's really good, and it only got 3 seasons, so it was one of those shows that just got cut short. But I guess they got a heads up too, where they were able to take that last episode of the 3rd season and actually make it what could be seen as a series finale versus a show that was cut short. So they did at least get that. But anyways, guys, that is my ranking of the CW Arrowverse / DC properties that we got for the CW. A whole era of shows and just doing something that they didn't really ever accomplish with the movies, and they still haven't, and I just don't have a lot of faith that they're going to. But I hope you enjoyed my discussion and my ranking. If you have similar or different thoughts, please leave them in the comments below. Leave their likes, it really helps me out. And again, thank you for helping me reach my 1,000 subscriber goal. So if you enjoyed, please subscribe to the channel and come back for more videos, and I will see you next time. So take care, bye.